thank you so much for coming and welcome to our first Bring Your Own Lunch webinar. I hope you've all brought your own lunch, otherwise the name is utterly pointless. And I've already had mine because I'm going to be doing some talking and it's just no good when I got a face full of sandwich. So essentially what we want to do with this is to have a session every week, every other week. We'll see how it goes, we'll see what people want. And it's a relatively informal affair. And so we're going to try out a couple of different formats. We thought we'd do Zoom and we would have everybody visible because Silicon South is all about supporting our network. And then you all get to see who each other is rather than just doing a webinar where there's just a few people who are in there. It may well be that for the purposes of the conversation, you might want to go onto the speaker view rather than the gallery view. But essentially all the people who are going to be doing the mainstay of the talking are probably in the top row, more or less. What we want to do is that the idea behind this is that we've been running quite a few discussion groups. It's been really interesting to talk to a lot of the people who are leading businesses, kind of small companies, mid-sized companies, some of the bigger companies, and just to see what some of the issues and some of the challenges are that people have been talking about over the past few months. Been some really interesting stuff. And so for the first few topics, we've picked up on some of the key conversation points which have been emerging. And we just thought it'd be interesting to try and develop them and spread those more widely and see what other people think. So I'm very interested in your ideas, what your challenges are, and if there's things that you would like to try and contribute for the future, please do let me know. We're very interested to hear what we could be doing further on down the line. So we're not saying we've got all the answers, but what we want to do is to try and explore the questions. And, you know, it's been known I've been prone to kind of burst into Shakespeare from time to time, or all sorts of odd creativity. But actually my inspiration today is the celebrated band Take That. And I'm taking the lyrics from their top quality song, Shine, which is, we're all just pushing along, trying to figure it out. And to some extent, that's what today's all about. Just trying to work out and explore different facets. So today is all about the office, the role of the office, what we do with offices. Do we need them? You know, that we have been we're looking at a future now where we're beginning to come out of lockdown. And you know, some people are going, well, actually that wasn't so bad, it wasn't as bad as I thought. Other people are thinking, well, I didn't enjoy it quite so much. So it's been good for some people, maybe less good for some other people, and maybe that's been different inside our companies as well. So do we want to go back to the office? What have we lost by not being there, and what have we gained by not being there as well? And what can we take from the past few months? What should we be trying to feed into this? So helping me out to talk through some of these questions, I've got three people who are all faced with exactly those particular questions. So Paul Tansey is the MD and the co-founder of Intergage. Alex Graves is the MD and co-founder of Silicon Reef. And Sonia Mundy is the creative director of Yellow Book Interiors. So can I maybe start with you, Paul? And just ask you just to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about Intergage, and maybe say what you feel you might have gained most over the past few months.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Paul Tansey, as you say, Managing Director of Intergage. We're a B2B digital marketing company specialising in marketing automation, basically web design, digital marketing and marketing automation. Today is an interesting day because today I handed a letter to my landlord giving him 6 months notice. And I was surprised by, you know, we employ 27 people and our office is 3,500 square foot. So this is a significant office. We decided that we do like having an office and we're always going to want one, but we really don't need to have 3,500 that's short for square feet, I think. My mouth isn't working, that's bad. And but we definitely don't need 3,500 squeets, and we could easily get by with much less than that. And we're asking ourselves questions like, do we actually, you know, we want to get our own office because we think it's good to have a home, and it's good to have and it's helpful for culture. It's certainly, we think It's helpful for our customers. They've always said when they've come to see us how much they enjoy the buzz of the office. And so we don't want to not have one, because our customers love coming to our office and always tell us they love the buzz, they love meeting the people, and they love the way they're treated when they come to the office. They also perceive the office as part of our brand. So there is all of that stuff around having an office. But there is clearly a lot of benefits to working at home as well. And for those people that commute, we've got people driving in from Hampshire. They've certainly not missed being in the car for an hour each way every day. Those people are enjoying seeing much more of their families and what have you, clearly. And I know that flexible working and the ability to have a much better balance is so important to people. I think we've really discovered what that could mean going forward.
Fantastic. Thank you, Paul. Alex, can I pass it on to you as well? Just introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what you think you've gained and what you may have lost.
Yeah, sure. So Alex Gray is Managing Director and co-founder of Silicon Reef. Silicon Reef are specialists in Microsoft 365. So that's things like Microsoft Teams, which is very similar to Zoom if you haven't used it before, but it's in the Microsoft sphere. We are an agency of 30 people and we're spread up and down the country. We have hubs offices at the moment in Chester, Kingston upon Thames, and we use the Barclays Eagle Labs. Hello, Mark, down there in the bottom right corner. I see you down there. In Westbourne, in Bournemouth as well. And one of the things that we've seen as a positive thing about this is more people doing what we do. We have it's like an unwritten policy. You don't need to be in the office if you don't want to be. Our hub locations are there for drop-in as and when you want to. So this flexible working, or as I like to prefer to call it, work from anywhere mentality is spreading across the globe. And the opportunities it's going to bring for more people in terms of opening doors to recruitment across the globe as well. You're no longer going to have to look locally or just the commuting like Paul was talking about. You can actually start looking at more global opportunities for recruitment, because actually the world is waking up to the reality that you can work from anywhere and still align to what the company's vision is.
That's really interesting. I think that'd be definitely a point which would be worth picking up on a little bit later. Sonia, could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you found that you've gained and you've lost?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Sonia Mundy. My business is Yellow Book Interiors. I'm creative director, and it's basically just me. And I've been used to working at home anyway. I actually started working at this workspace. Like Anthony, I took a hot desk last November because I joined forces with another local interior designer because we were collaborating on a couple of projects together. And she already had a desk there, so it made sense for us to sit and work in the same office together. The benefits of it were obviously the social interaction for me, having worked from home for so long, to suddenly be surrounded by a group of really nice people was great. But also I was massively productive. I actually found that I got more done when I was there than if I was working at home. Too many distractions, the washing machine's just pinged, that sort of thing. So I actually miss working there. And then the other challenge for me as a mum as well, I've been homeschooling. So rather than sitting in here in my nice cozy little studio, I've actually been sitting at the dining table homeschooling, which just isn't the same at all. So yeah, the benefits are obviously it's cheaper because it doesn't cost me anything. This workspace I found was actually quite expensive. So I don't have those additional costs, which is good, particularly at a time like this, but I do miss the social interaction.
Okay, that's really interesting. I mean, I just think it's kind of it's fascinating, kind of looking at this whole concept of working from home. When you just look around the screens here, Megan's got her daughter with her. Lee's just switched himself off, but I saw he was sitting in the car. So that's like what maybe kind of hiding from the rest of the family because that's your quiet spot in there, maybe. But I think that's really interesting, kind of what working from home really means. But Paul, let's pick up on that idea. Congratulations, you've handed your notice in on your office today. What's changed your opinion about the need for the office?
Well, I don't have changed my opinion about the need for an office. I think there is still an integral part of, as I say, of our brand and our culture. But it's in talking to the Intergagers our team, it's apparent that they, I've asked them all, what do you think about working from home? And most of them like working from home a lot, but never want to work from home all the time. So we're figuring, well, actually that presents us with an opportunity just to cut down on the amount of space, because space is so expensive. I mean, as I said, been saying for a long time, if you get a group of Dorset business people together, whether it's in our industry or any industry, and you say, well, what are the challenges of being in Dorset? After they've spoken about the skill shortage, the next thing they say is office space is a nightmare. And if you want to buy office space, well, good luck with that, because that's rare as hen's teeth. And then they'll talk about communications, and they'll talk about how rubbish the road communications are to other areas of the country, and then they'll talk about how rubbish the communications are by rail and stuff like that. Well, a lot of what we've learned in lockdown has changed all that, so that's good. But I think going back to Alex's point about global recruitment, goodness, I say recruitment then. My mouth simply isn't working. So global recruitment. It's also about global customer acquisition as well. And we realised that we were under a misapprehension that we needed to be a regional office. I mean, I don't think you need an office to recruit customers. We've proven that you don't. And we definitely saw ourselves as a regional business. And in fact, we profiled our ideal customer as somebody who was within 90 minutes of our office. And we discovered that that's bullshit. That's a social construct we created that is absolutely no basis in truth at all. We can win customers from anywhere. So that starts to extrapolate that thinking. You go, well, actually, that does mean we can be a national or international or global country. We could be recruiting people from around the world. We could be recruiting customers from around the world. If we're going to do that, we're going to have to get a whole lot more niche. So we're focusing on exactly which niche do we need to go for. But I think that there is, if you get to be really niche and really expert in a niche, you can be a global business now. And I think this has just proven to all of us that there are different ways of doing business. And while an office is nice, to say the culture, and particularly for recruitment and onboarding, I know Alex does it without an office, and I'm really fascinated by how he does that. But there are things like providing work experience to young people that I'm not sure work at all if you don't have an office. If you're going to have interns, and I think it's really important that we do give young people work experience and show them about our industry and what it's like to work. Without having an office, how do you do that? So there's questions about that.
Should we just throw that straight over to Alex then? How did you do that? How do you do that?
Yeah. So we're only 3 years old as a company, and one of the first things that we agreed as when we were forming was actually we were going to go for a model of hiring some fairly senior people first of all, rather than going for junior people, because our plan is over the years we will have that senior layer, but also at a point in time we want to then recruit that junior level, which are interns, work experience, or people who are fresh out of university, graduates and things, so that then our senior level has established the ways of working, the processes. I still consider us in our startup and scale up phase of with 3 years old, so that we can actually start to look at the models of interns and grads, so that those buddying systems of bringing people up to speed is perfectly possible. Now we do have office spaces, and the Kingston office in February this year had 2 interns who were 16 years old, one studying law, the other one studying business studies, who came on and learned what it was to be part of a startup company, a tech company. And one of the things that we said to them is like, look, you don't have to come into this office to come and be part of this work experience or working with us, but actually if you want to be sat with the developer, the designer, the project manager, the account manager to learn, by all means come in. Otherwise you can do it remotely via Teams or via Zoom or however you want to do it, but we'll just it's up to you how you want to work. And they were like, actually, yeah, that's similar to how we are doing our education. We have lectures and things to go to, or we have these other things to go to, but all of the materials are online. We can connect and everything online. So actually, it's not that different to how we're being educated now anyway. So actually, the way that we're looking at building up future recruitment and the idea of having interns and work experience, it's still, I think, to your point, Paul, really relevant to have a place where they can go and be with the team to learn. And I don't think that will change. But does it have to be a fixed abode? No. We have people that go and some of them are in and around London. They just choose to go and work from the British Museum Cafe for like 4 hours a day together, because they actually want to just interact with each other. It doesn't have to be a Starbucks or something like that. You can go somewhere a bit more interesting. And that to me is what work from anywhere is about. And what a great thing to do, to be able to set up a desk and just get your laptop out and say, this is my office for the day. It can be anywhere. And I'm a huge advocate of not having to watch what people are doing and oversee them. And I don't believe in that. I never have done. And I think
So
go on, Anthony.
No, I was just going to say that. So you say you've got 2 interns who've been working in the office in Kingston. So is the Kingston office, is that a full-time office that you have, or is that a part-time office, or how much time have they been spending in that space?
So that was we actually took out a lease in January for 3 years. That was our first ever leased office that we have. And it's nowhere near as big as the 3,000 square feet, I think you called it.
Squeets.
Squeets, sorry. Yeah, technical term I need to become accustomed to. But yeah, the 3,000 squeets, yeah, it's much smaller than that. It's probably more like an 8 to 10 person office, and it's a tight fit. But people can just duck in and out of there as and when they need to. And so that's our only base in the UK. And you probably find on a normal working day, pre the situation we're in now, you'll probably find between 3 and 5 people in there a day. And yeah, it changes all the time. They can just duck in and out as and when they want. There's no mandate from us to say, you must be in this office X number of days a week. We've never done that. And our other 2 offices, the Chester office is in a Regis, and again, similar setup. It's scaled up over time as we've actually got bigger and more people wanted to be in the office. But then we scale it down when people say we don't want to use the office at the moment, or project work isn't such that we need to all be together. And then we've also got the Eagle Labs in Bournemouth, where we actually only meet up once a week as the 4 people who are based in Dorset, so that we can all get together. And it's just the getting together part. And it's mostly so we can go for lunch and chat about what we've been up to, and that human interaction, which we're getting right now. We're getting all of us are face to face, but the human interaction, and then they're the things that I'm missing as lockdown. But is it stopping productivity? No.
Well, I think that's interesting, that point you say about wanting to be in the office, because that's something that Sonia mentioned earlier on. I mean, how strong is the appeal, do you find, for people wanting to be in the office, and then therefore, so we can't dismiss it altogether. It's kind of what that sounds like. But how often and how strong is that desire for people to be there? Alex, if you want to finish that off, and then maybe we can come across to Sonia and Paul. Oh.
Sorry, muting. Yeah, the desire for people to be in there. We've actually, so one of our employees is from New Zealand, and she went back to New Zealand for Christmas, actually in December. And then so she then spent 4 months working from New Zealand and Australia at the beginning of this year. And literally the week she came back, we went into lockdown. So she hasn't seen some of us for 6 months. So one of the things that we've had to do to listen to people about is that she's desperate to get back in and see the team again. She's actually like, I really want to get back in there. I'm missing that human interaction. So having the option and the flexibility to be there is so important. And yeah, listening to people within the organization. Do they want a space to go to? Then we'll provide it. If they say, actually, we're quite happy to work from home, yeah, it's giving people that flexibility.
Sonia, how about you? Because you were talking earlier on about the fact that you would like to be in an office. How often do you feel like you want to be in there, and what's the real appeal for you? Because presumably what you need is going to be symptomatic for half the employees in the world, really.
Yes, well, first of all, it is the human interaction. I think because I'd only went into this workspace around November, and I actually pulled my contract at the end of March, which actually was timed quite well with going into lockdown. I did find that time enormously productive. I met some really lovely people, and what I liked about this workspace was, one, not just the fact that it's a really, really fabulous space, but also that there are lots of other creative agencies there as well. So I've got to know them really well, graphic designers and CAD designers and things like that, and other interior designers as well. So I think also going forward, the way of work is not going to be about every man for himself. It's going to be about collaboration. So the opportunity to meet with these people and be in the same building as them on a regular basis is really good for collaborative projects. As far as having interns is concerned, I mean, primarily I get contacted by 16-year-olds saying, can I come and do a week's work experience? So the first one I had, I was still just working at home. I hadn't been to this workspace at this point, and it turns out that I was really busy. I was thinking, oh my goodness, what am I going to give her to do? Actually, turns out she came to me at a very busy time, and we were out and about every single day. Poor girl was actually exhausted by the end of it, because also, you know, school hours are different to work hours, and I was working her 8:30 till 5:30 every day. She was exhausted. But then also we've had a couple of uni students when I was at this workspace working with this other interior designer on these collaborative projects. We did have a couple of students that came in, and it was nice to show them a base, but also to give them the autonomy to say, right, this is this project we're working on. We don't need to go to site today, but if you would rather be at home rather than sitting here, then feel free to go home and work. And I think going forward, when we take on staff, it's going to be about giving people that responsibility, and I think people thrive on it, and I think people like to be given empowerment to get on and do the job rather than sitting in an office clock watching, because I've also had that vast experience as well, where managers are total clock watchers from the second you come in to the second you go out. I don't think there's a space for that in the world anymore. I think people need to be given trust and respect and the space to get on with their job, but similarly know that they are still part of a valued team and can come together as and when is needed. So are people going to be spending lots and lots of money on a monthly basis to hire a regular office space? Probably not. I can see, like Paul's decided we just don't need to do that, but more the call for co-working spaces and more flexibility, where you can either hire a permanent desk, or you can go in and have a block of days per month, or just hire literally a day at a time. I think there needs to be a lot more flexibility around that.
That's interesting. So, I mean, you kind of touch on that whole idea about scalability as well, which I think sort of ties in. By the way, feel free to add some questions in the chat on the side, and I'll pick them up later on if we don't pick them up as we go through. But let me just pick up on Darren's point to Paul in terms of that scalability. And also Carolyn, I'm going to prep you because I want to come back and ask you kind of from the point of view of a psychologist, sort of in terms of picking up on Sonia's point about the need and what people really want and how they deal with responsibility. So that's a cue. We'll come back to you in a second. So Paul, how much space do you think you need? How scalable does that need to be? How much time do you think you would be expecting people to be in the office, or how much time do you think they'll want to be there for? And will you give them that sort of autonomy maybe that Sonia was talking about in terms of them being responsible, or do you have to actually kind of lay down the rules of engagement so people understand?
Well, prior to COVID, we were allowing people to manage their working weeks anyway. So we were allowing our people to work flexibly. They could take, provided they got together in a group and they organised work so it got done and we didn't miss deadlines and we didn't let customers down. I don't really care whether they work 5 days a week or 4 days a week or which days a week, but we did say you need to be on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so that if we need to organise meetings, then we know that we've got everybody in the office on those days. So that was where we came from anyway. To completely take Sonia's point about trust, I think that's massive. I think we've all learned to trust people a lot more, and that's a really beautiful thing that's come out of all of this. And by the way, Alex, if you don't mind me saying so, I've learned a lot about that from you in the last few discussions that we've had, because Alex, for example, has an unlimited holiday policy. How much trust do you have to offer people that? I mean, that's staggering. I'd like to come back to that. So we're looking at the whole way that we use an office. I'd be really interested in people's feedback. I'm working. David's just joined us. David Giles from Embark. David and I are looking at this whole thing about office space. And how do we create the perfect office space? For example, if we need people to be in on a Tuesday and Thursday, do we just need the office for Tuesday and Thursday? Could there be another business that was the same size as Intergage that used our office on Wednesdays and Mondays, and another one that just needed an office 1 day a week that used it on Fridays? If we got together and collaboratively designed that space so that it really worked for us all, then we could presumably we could reduce our overheads massively, because offices are bloody expensive, and anything we can do to cut that down, but still have a great place to call home and a great place to bring clients to when we need to, would be really good. And I'm really interested right now, and I know David is in particular, talking to people about what their ideas of collaborative office spaces look like. You know, we've been talking about, for example, wouldn't it be great to build something really cool that you could use flexibly, that maybe even had shared video production facilities? So we're talking about maybe, you know, we have a news desk area, we have a cozy sofa chats area, we have a technical explanation area with whiteboards and big screens, and you set the cameras up so you know the lighting always works, but you can change the branding really quickly, either electronically or with physical branding. You know, we can do really cool stuff if we think about this stuff differently, and we really want to have those conversations with people about, you know, this alternative use of the office. Does it have to be 5 days a week if you have one? I'm not sure it does. I'd be really interested in people's feedback on that. But sorry, maybe I didn't answer the question properly. Can you just recap the question in case I just rambled?
I think the question was, did you ramble? Didn't you? You kind of did it. But anyway, no, the question really was about scalability in terms of, I suppose, how much space you really feel you need, because you maybe if it's going to be, is it 2 days a week? Is that going to be enough time? You sort of said that could be the case. Do you need the same size that you had before, and you just need to share it with more people?
Yeah, well, I mean, both those things are true. I need less space than I used to. I'm not sure I need it 5 days a week. Be really interested in talking to people who feel the same way. And if as we are, David and I are talking to each other about creating a collaborative workspace, we'd be really interested in talking to people about what their ideas for that look like. We think the video production idea is ridiculously cool. We're really excited about that one. But we think that there's probably other really cool ideas that people would have if we were to just think completely differently about, you know, how much time exactly do you need in the office? Do you need 2 mornings a week, an afternoon and a morning? Do you need a day, 3 days? I'm not sure.
Well, towards the end of the session, I thought it'd be interesting just to try and break off into some breakout rooms. So we've set up 3 breakout rooms, which we'll go into at 1:45, 10:45, something like that. So there's a chance for you to all talk amongst each other about this. So it's not, so that it's a participation rather than just sitting back and listening. Hopefully that will work. But yeah, maybe we can pick up on some of those there as well. Alex, can I just ask you, in terms of that Tuesday, Thursday approach that Paul's talking about, what do you do? How often do you meet? Do you meet up as a whole team, given that you're spread out so much, or do you just do it all virtually?
So as a whole company, we have, you know, the weekly all hands meeting, which is done virtually on a Monday afternoon. We all get together for an hour and do exactly what we're doing here, a video conversation where we all have a catch up about what's going on, fill people in. But then every quarter, so we have a quarterly meetup where we all physically get together. So it's people from Newcastle, people from Newquay, all come together, and we meet in either the Chester, the Kingston, or the sunny Sandbanks location. And we all get together and we have a good time. And that's all that is really. It's not about, you know, doing much work together. That's our culture and bonding time together where we have fun. And that's really important. And actually we had our first virtual one 2 weeks ago, where it was a whole day of like presentation based material and discussions like this, and we mixed it up with a little bit of games of through the keyhole for people's houses and things like that. And you know, it was good fun. And actually I did a survey, like an internal survey afterwards, about how people felt about that when compared to like our actual physical meetups. And if anything, it got similar results, which I found really interesting to our previous ones, in the fact that people felt it was good fun. It was a good amount of time. They felt informed about what the company's doing and where we're going. And I think it says a lot about the culture that we have as an organization, but also about how we're going through this lockdown situation. And it's helped us adapt a lot easier. And it's become almost like, this is the way things are now, guys. This is we're in this together. So in terms of, you know, what we're looking to do in terms of meetups in the future, maybe we'll do less physical, like quarterly meetups where we all get together. But actually, our physical meetups, in terms to answer your question, Anthony, so I'm not rambling too much as well. But it's we in Bournemouth, we get together once a week on a Wednesday. And that's like a routine. Like every Wednesday we go to the Eagle Labs and we get together. And like I said, it's purely for that physical, like let's have a chat about what's been going on as within our team that are based down here. The Kingston guys, it's very much drop into the office in Kingston as and when you want. And the Chester guys, it's very similar to the Kingston one. We have a base. There's nothing around you must be in there on a morning, on a Wednesday. It's actually as and when people want to. And interestingly, one of the things that we've done during lockdown is that we conducted a survey of 1,000 people, different demographics, and these results are going to be published within the next few weeks, actually. And of the 1,000 people, only 13% of the 1,000 said that they wanted to go and be office-based in the future, like 100% office-based. The majority said that 45% that I would like to be able to work from home on occasions, and 13% again said they wanted to be 100%. 7% said they want to only be based from home. 14% they said they want 50-50 split. 20% so they're like able to work from home from often, and 45% just on occasion. So we've run there's a number of questions that we had. I think it's about 15 or 20 questions in the survey, but we'll publish those results and then we'll share with everybody here the results of that 1,000-person survey. But it was really insightful, and actually, Paul, it might help you guys make a decision about what you do in terms of that balance between getting people inside the office or out.
Well, I think Laura's got a really interesting point about productivity I'd like to come on to in a second. But before we do, Carolyn, can I turn to you and just ask, so Carolyn and I, Carolyn very kindly ran some small sessions talking about, really talking with people who struggled a little bit, certainly in the earlier days of lockdown, in terms of getting used to it. And as a psychologist, what do you think are the things that we need to remember before we go, right, let's all embrace this whole working from home culture? What are some of the things to look out for?
There's quite a few things, but I think the key thing is that, and I'm going to be slightly controversial here, is not to box all our employees into our own confirmation bias about what remote working looks like and feels like, because our employees are all different and we all have different personalities. And working from home for an introvert is very different from working from home as an extrovert. And there's also a lot of other unconscious biases that go into whole working from home, like reputational capital of actually, if my boss isn't seeing me physically, am I building a reputation with them? If I'm working at home all the time, does that look like I'm not working very well? But also, how do I get promoted if my boss doesn't see me all the time? Other things to think about is actually, how do we do digital leadership? Because this is a very, very different way of doing employee leadership and team leadership versus physical leadership. Digital leadership needs to be, and it's a completely different mindset, completely different actions, but digital leadership needs to be a constant engagement with your employees, because in an open office environment, whether you're meeting up once a week or every day, you have that ability to stick your head above the parapet and chat. Whereas if you're doing remote working, that doesn't happen. There's scheduled calls, there's scheduled time, there's scheduled meetings, and even online digital company conferences, it's a specific time. So you don't have that fluidity that you have in a physical environment. So the way that you work with employees has to change, and we need to be training our leaders and our managers and our line managers within businesses on how we actually do digital leadership going forward. So whether someone's working from home all the time, part of the time, or none of the time, we need to be very flexible in that. But there's also, going back to the trust thing, I think Alex and Paul also spoke about, is the bottom line is, if you don't trust your employees, why are you hiring them? If you don't trust your managers, why did you employ them in the first place? So it really goes down to building that element of kind of team spirit in a digital environment. It is a very different concept, it's a very different way of doing things. And I think we're going to, as business leaders, have to completely shift and change how we do business, how we do team management, how we do employee management, how we do recruitment, and what that means, because employees are now going to be changing their remit and what they look for in job specs of do you allow me to work from home? Are you forcing me to work from home? What is the downside of me working from home for you? What is the upside of me working from home for you? So there's a lot of psychological stuff that we need to focus on. And it's not so much about squeaks or productivity levels. It's about, how do we manage mental wellness? How do we manage emotional wellness when we don't see them all the time, when we don't see the ideal self that they're putting across in webinars and Zoom calls? How do we manage those when we don't actually, we're not physically seeing the fallout of Zoom fatigue, of not having psychological detachment strategies of, I'm at home, I'm working, now I'm not working. So we need to be teaching employees what those psychological detachment strategies are, how to manage it, how to switch off from work when I'm working.
Yeah.
There's just so much, and I'm
Yeah.
going to stop that.
Well, maybe I can ask you, Paul, how much you've thought about that in terms of, I imagine, Alex, also you'd have a point to make in terms of the process that you need in order to be able to manage this effectively. Paul, you're at the stage where all of this is about to happen. How much have you thought through those other impacts? And I guess that other point about, that there are some people, in the percentages that Alex was talking about, some people just want to be in the office. Are you going to be able to provide that for them in your temporary office scenario?
I agree. I think that's a real issue, and thanks, Karen. I agree with everything you were saying. I think that stereotypically, if at one end of the spectrum I look at the salespeople we employ, they're hugely social animals, and them working from home, it takes a lot out of that. The work environment fun for them. They lose the buzz. Whereas if I look at the other end of the stereotypical but quite true spectrum, I've got software developers who really don't care whether they're all there or not most of the time, and they prefer to be quietly working away. So that's one thing. So there is very, very real issues around that. Secondly, there's what we've got to remember as well is that if I look around here, we all seem to be working in nice offices. A lot of young people are, because of the housing situation, particularly here in Bournemouth, we've got a situation where housing space is so expensive that a lot of people have got bed sits and studios and stuff, and being in that all day isn't the same as being, I'm quite lucky. I've got really quite cool office here. I love it, in my office. But if it was a bed sit or a studio, it would feel really claustrophobic for to be working there and going home and going home. There is no going home. You are at home all the time in such a small space. It would be deeply unhealthy. So I absolutely take those things on board. But yes, I'm. I think where I'm going with my office is that we will have an office. It will just be smaller, but we may go to renting it out for 1 or 2 days as I'm going through this conversation, thinking it through. But we'll have that flexibility. That's the bottom line.
Okay. There's an interesting point from Joanna about insurance and the accountability that we're going to have for people if they are working from home. I know, Alex, we were talking about this the other day, and you were not quite sure kind of how much you had to have or didn't have, but whether, from a health and safety point of view, are we responsible for people's workplace? Are we meant to be able there to monitor the workstations that people are at and to make sure that they're not working on the edge of their bed, bent over on the laptop all day? How much have you put into that?
So I'm going to caveat this by saying I'm no insurance expert, and it is not anything I want anybody to take any guidance from me at all on this conversation today. But what we have in terms of how we outsource our HR and our health and safety elements, the guidance we've been given is that everybody has to attend an online health and safety online e-learning platform, go through, answer the questions, and that's how we are covered for that. Have we provided everybody desks and chairs and like stands for their laptops and things? No. Other organizations I know are doing it, and that's great. If we had 100% work from home policy, maybe that's what we would have to provide everybody, which again, as a business owner, you're thinking, okay, well, that probably is cheaper than renting office space, right? To send everybody a desk and a chair. But I like Paul said, I still think there's a future of an office to where you have all those fixed desks and things, whether it's flexible, whether it's your own, or it doesn't really matter. But from an insurance perspective, we've just been guided by our HR and our health and safety policies. And I saw another question flash up around do we have to change our own home insurance policies? Again, I'm not qualified to answer that one, so don't take my answer for it.
Yeah, no,
So
I was
wanted to answer one of the things that Carolyn mentioned, because it actually affected me personally, and I'm happy to talk about it. So one of the things, as many of you are business owners, I can't put my phone down. I'm on it all the time, and it's buzzing away, whether it's an email, whether it's the latest thing, LinkedIn post that's getting all my likes going. I'm like, brilliant, yes, I'm getting liked, great satisfaction. But actually it became really obsessive. And one of the things that I was quite open about my team with was being at home and not in an office space doesn't mean that you have to work into the night. It doesn't mean that you have to do beyond the 9 to 5. It doesn't mean that, like, if I'm emailing you at 8 p.m, I don't expect a response until you're actually working the next day. And it's being open and telling people that that's the culture that you expect from others, and you don't expect, just because I'm doing it, I don't want everybody else to be doing it. But also I felt really guilty, and I was like, actually, Alex, you've got to change how you work, because if I'm supposed to be leading by example and I'm doing the same thing, and I'm on Teams on a weekend sending people notifications, and actually, Alex, you need to change. And it was something that I have actually used the Microsoft technology itself, which has helped me recognize that there's technology things that you can put in place to say, like, give me some well-being metrics around how often am I actually interacting out of hours. How quick am I responding to emails? Am I losing my focus and productivity? There's lots of tools that you can use. It's not just Microsoft, other tools do it as well, to help you get through these kind of things. And the first step is like Alcoholics Anonymous. It's recognizing it's a problem, and it's going, God, I need to do something about this. And to Carolyn's point, it is a culture thing, but it's that leading by example and saying to people, guys, I realize that I do this. I don't expect you to do the same. And, I'm trying to change my working habits. So yeah, I think that's a really important part about well-being. And, my wife told me, Alex, you've got to get your foot off your phone. And actually it's that thing around putting boundaries around your working day. And your working day doesn't mean all day just because you're at home and not in the office.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, actually. I'll just say, this is something I found, I think, because I didn't have the school run to break up my day. So I knew that beforehand I had very set hours in which I could do my work, and then I had to stop and I had to go and do the school run, and then the rest of the day was about the children. Then going into lockdown, I found it's easy to just keep going, but that's really actually no good for me or the children. So we would always try and go out for a walk about 4 o'clock, which was almost, we treated that as like the commute home. It had that differentiation between our work and school time, and then just family chill out time for the rest of the day. And I think if obviously I don't have staff, but obviously when I've had work experience people with me, I have a duty of care to them to make sure that they break, they can go to the loo, that they can eat and drink regularly, particularly if we're out and about. But that also goes back to the fact that a lot of my work, all my work is project based, and there are different phases to it. So at the early stages of a project, I will be office based, working on a design and creating and doing concepts. It's only later on in the project when it starts to get to site and we're doing the build work and you're going to site and monitoring progress and things like that, and then the actual dressing of the property and doing the installation, that you tend to be out of the office more. So it's quite cyclical in terms of my project work, and also then how I would then manage my staff, if or freelancers if I had them. But I do think the duty of care is really important, because like Alex has just said, the danger is we can all just sit and work, and that's fine if you enjoy it, but also it's not actually any good for your own mental well-being. You might sit and eat at your desk as well, so I've been guilty of that. So rather than taking a designated lunch break, I would just sit and eat at lunch, eat at my laptop, and then carry on. So I could be on it for literally hours a day. And then if we're doing Zoom calls as well, you then find, well, I don't know about you, but I come off and I'm absolutely exhausted from them, particularly if I've done a couple like back to back. So I think there needs to be this encouragement about having a proper space to work in, but also designated times of day as well. So try and keep to routine, I think, is really important for mental and physical well-being. And that's something that I've really tried to focus on, particularly because I've got the children at home as well. And just taking those breaks as and when needed.
Yeah, just one thing to chuck in. So what I do is, I'm very lucky. I've got a space which is dedicated to working in. So every morning I walk out the front door and I walk around the block and I walk in through the back door and I go to work. So I commute to work every morning. So that is definite. And then I choose whether I want to do that at the end of the day or not. But look, we'll kind of split off into the rooms in a second. But before we do, I want to pick up on Laura's question, which was about, let's come back to the business side of things in terms of productivity. So have you noticed any change? Paul, let's start with you, kind of in terms of an impact on productivity from people working at home. It's been better, worse, maybe better for some, worse for some. How's that paying into the output for the business?
Most people are more productive, and they have strayed into the space of overworking rather than underworking. And you know, I every week I nag them all to make sure that they are drinking enough water, and I feel like their mum really, but I'm saying, are you drinking enough water? Are you taking breaks? Did you know that 5 minutes, just 5 minutes walking through trees or by water can do serious benefits for your blood pressure, and they can actually produce anti-cancer cells by doing all of that? And you know what? I then don't take my own medicine. And then the other night, if I can inappropriately overshare for a moment, then I'm sat there watching telly, and my wife looked at my feet and went, "Your feet are enormous. They've really swelled up." And it's like, and you know why that is, don't you, Paul? Why is that, Tanith? Because you've worked 15 hours a day for the last 3 days, and you've barely moved off that chair while you've been doing Zoom meetings and stuff. So I do think it's important, and I'm a complete hypocrite. And so I'm really working hard to try not to be a hypocrite in the future. And I am building that exercise. I just cycled down to the ferry yesterday morning before work and stuff. So I think it's really important we do all that. What was the question again, Anthony? Did I do it again? Did I just rant?
Productivity, kind of impact on productivity.
Yeah, they're more productive. That's the quick answer.
Okay.
They're more productive.
Laura, why don't we open that one up to you? Laura Edwards, who runs Viral Talent, which is a talent management company for influencers. What's been the impact for you?
So some of our staff have been very effective and have worked really well at home, and some have been just meltdown moments. And we all get on really well and we're a close team. There's 15 of us, but like some of them just are so non-productive and have had meltdowns and are not too proud to admit it. They're like, I just can't work like this. And it's mainly the younger ones that are in bed sits. And I can understand why. It must be really hard for them mentally. And you know what it's like when they're just like spiraling downwards and they're getting lower and lower, and they're like, I can't even talk to a brand, I can't even sign a deal, and they're getting demotivated and it just spirals out of control. So I'd say 50-50 of our team, which is quite interesting.
That's really interesting, isn't it? That's really, really interesting, just in terms of, you know, there's so much kind of positivity and around this as a topic, but just remembering, you know, like Carolyn said before, it's everybody is not the same and people will respond in a really different way. There's some interesting points kind of down in the chat if people have been having a look at the chat. I'd really like to maybe break this out into small groups, just kind of like 5-10 minutes of little smaller discussion groups. There are 30 of us, so we can split into about 10 people, so having a bit more conversation time. I hope that works. I don't know if it's going to work or not. You might all just bugger off. I don't know. But if you fancy sticking around for a little bit longer, and then we can actually have some proper chats, which would be really, really interesting. So let's try that and pick up the questions, and we'll take them off into the separate rooms. So Oh, people are dropping like fly. Oh, they're all going. Have you?
We've been given the host
Oh,
is
right.
inviting you to join breakout room. So
Great. Okay. See
off
you
we
in there.
go. Bye.
Bye.